Flirties. Up for discussion today is codependency with our guest, Vanessa Bennett, a licensed marriage and family therapist and co-host of the podcast Cheaper Than Therapy. Vanessa is also a speaker and author of the new book, The Motherhood Myth. Vanessa's work delves into the roots of codependency, exploring how generational trauma, societal norms, and personal experiences shape our relational patterns while empowering individuals to recognize and transform these patterns, guiding them toward interdependence and authentic connections. Vanessa, hello and welcome.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's always so weird when somebody reads about you and you're like, do I do that? Is that me?
Oh, I had to even take out some things. You do even more.
Yeah, I'm a juggler.
Oh, I love it. I feel like we got to be when we're entrepreneurs, when we're business owners, parents, not me, but you.
All the things, all the hats.
All the things. Well, thank you for making the time to be on Flirtations and record this episode all about codependency, a topic I have not explored on the show. Very excited to get into it today. Some great questions came through from the Flirties. They always come through.
I was like, I know you're going to have some good ones. I just knew it.
They did not disappoint, never do. But here at the top in the About You section of the interview, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, your work, and what inspired you to help people with their relationships.
Yeah, I think a lot of therapists would probably say, or even coaches would probably say that it comes from their personal journey, right? So I think long before I actually went back to grad school to be a therapist, I was working on my codependency recovery. So it just kind of made sense. I did not know that that was going to be something that I was going to specialize in. I think it was something that I was just doing on my own. And then over the years, I just started seeing how every single person that came into my practice or that I saw in a group setting was struggling with codependency.
Yeah.
And it just became this thing where I was like, oh, this is not a wives of the alcoholic husbands problem, right? Yeah. That we know that term was kind of defined in the 80s, 70s and 80s to mean that. This is a societal issue.
Yeah.
And so I started really changing the way that I spoke about codependency, the way that I taught about it, the way that I, worked with clients, because I really believe in my bones. This is just how we are raised to relate in our current society.
Okay. Very interesting already. Let's get into that a little bit more. Maybe speaking about the origins of codependency first. Like as I was doing my flirt search and listening to the podcast, doing some reading, all that stuff, it seems like codependency really originated as a way to describe a relationship between an addict and maybe a caregiver, an addict and someone that is, for lack of better words, enabling. Like they're really tethered to one another in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, so that's not wrong, right? I'm not going to throw that out. I just think that we need to expand beyond that kind of limited way of looking at it. I also think that in that conversation, we have to expand the way that we talk about addiction. And this is why I talk about codependency as a societal issue, because I'm going to throw this out there and a lot of people bristle when I say it, but honestly, we're kind of all addicts.
Okay.
So, right. And addiction is something that you reach for to numb, to soothe, to hide, to alleviate uncomfortable discomfort, uncomfortable emotions. And every single one of us does that. It's just, what is your drug of choice? So I always say, one person's people pleasing is another person's Jack and Coke. They actually serve the same purpose. It's just that one is more socially acceptable, just like shopping in our society is a more socially or social media, right? They all serve the same purpose. We have this stigma around substances. And I'm not saying they can't be harmful, right? Of course, I was in a relationship with somebody who had a substance addiction, but it was through my work originally through Al-Anon where I started really looking at like, oh, this is a me thing. It's not a they're the problem and you're the, caretaker, martyr. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I do my own version of this. It just doesn't show up in substances, right? And so that's really what started changing the way that I looked at it, is it was like, how about if we all really start looking in the mirror and start looking at the way we're all unhealthily connected to other people. We all use other people to offset our anxiety in some way or another. That's codependency.
I love it already. Expanding the conversation beyond addiction and specifically codependency existing within those relationships maybe you have with an addict. And then also, I agree with you. I think we're all addicted to something. It tends to be, right, that conversation gravitates towards the substance, the alcohol, something like that, maybe even gambling, sex. But I mean, how we use Shopping, social media, those are two fantastic examples. I'd say food could be in that
Food.
conversation as well. I mean, don't look at my freezer, Vanessa. It's
I mean, listen,
or do. It's full of ice cream. Yes. I have a sweet tooth.
you and my
Mm-mm.
partner both. His is the sweets for sure.
Yeah,
Mine is
it's
control. We
gonna
all
get
have
me
our
every
thing.
time. All right, get into it deeper right away. If it's okay, I'd like to read an excerpt from your book.
Oh, sure.
May I do that?
Oh
I
my
think
God. Go ahead. You're the first person to
yes.
do this. So
I'm
excited.
so excited. I think just really speaking to everything you were just sharing, this comes from about the latter third of your book
Hmm.
as you really start talking about codependency more. And you say codependency, much like addiction, stems from a deep need to regulate our emotional states through external sources. At their core, both are spiritual crises, attempts to find wholeness and connection and external validation, relationships, or control. Codependency manifests as basing our emotional well being on someone else's state, seeking validation outside of ourselves, or using relationships and sometimes our attempt to control a person or situation to soothe our stress and anxiety. In essence, codependency and emotional control are coping mechanisms that mirror the addiction cycle, offering temporary relief while keeping us disconnected from our true needs, our sense of self, and a deeper spiritual connection to something greater than us. Wow. I
Mm,
had, when I was putting this together, I had to sit with that for a moment, Vanessa, several moments, in fact. But can you please share a little bit more, more about that?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, the way that kind of AA was even created, right? So my background is in depth psychology. So I
Mm,
studied Jungian psychology, and Jung
hmm.
actually was one of the co-creators with Bill W. of the
Okay.
12-step program. A lot of people don't realize that.
Did not know that.
And so, a lot of people bristle around 12 steps because it's very air quote religious. I would say that
Mm,
originally it was really supposed to be more spiritual.
hmm.
Sure, there's a religious slant,
Hmm.
but I think it also depends on if you look at the time that it was created, right? We're talking
Mm,
the 40s, the 50s.
mm.
Um, but Jung really believed that we as humans have what he called a religious component to our psyche. Again, if
Okay.
he were alive today, I would say he would probably say spiritual.
Okay.
And what that means is that it's very necessary for human beings to
Hmm.
feel connected to
Mm.
something larger than themselves.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay.
And in this current culture that we're in many ways that's been kind of cut off, right? We're very
Mm.
neck up. Logic is king, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For the most part, we've lost touch with anything spiritual. One would even say the feminine aspect, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
unknown, the flow of life, nature, interconnectedness, all of these
Hmm.
things that we would deem more feminine. And
Yeah.
in that would be spirituality.
Yeah.
And so, this idea of addiction, of needing to outsource my I'm okay,
Hmm.
in many ways, I look at as a spiritual crisis. It's because I don't have the foundation of I am held, I am safe, I
Hmm.
can trust that
Hmm.
I'll get through this no matter what. I don't
Mm.
need to outsource my okayness
Yeah.
because I have an inherent belief that I am held in something bigger.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
so much of depth psychology, just in general, taking the codependency piece out of it is
Right.
really this idea that we have to find our way back to that trust
Uh,
as like almost a final puzzle piece to like okayness, to use that word again.
yeah. I mean, I am loving this conversation so much already. Sometimes I say in my work, it's in dating, because I bring a lot of I'm a yoga teacher. And so I bring a lot of my yoga philosophy
Hmm.
and training into my coaching and
Yep.
into the podcast, all that good stuff. And for me, it's about that journey from the head to the heart, right?
Hmm.
We're not talking about a huge distance, but that is the journey of a lifetime to get out of the analytical mind, the
Yep.
overthinking, the obsessive, just intrusive thoughts, maybe limerence, always just looking outside of ourselves to feel okay, to feel good, to feel whole,
Yep.
to feel calm, to feel wanted, needed, loved, right? Insert any word there. So how could we start to, yeah, let's ask this question, build more of that trust within ourselves? How could we
Mm,
maybe start to feel more whole within ourselves so we don't outsource validation all the time
yeah.
to others?
Well, I think you basically put it beautifully when you talked about yoga. I also was trained to
Mm,
to be a teacher. It's a big practice of mine as well,
uh-huh.
right? And I
Yeah.
think we could all agree that in the West,
Hmm.
people go into yoga first for the asana. They go
Totally.
in first for the body.
Yep.
And then if
Yep.
they get really into it, they're like, oh, holy shit, there's a whole spiritual component that makes
Yeah.
me feel better than I've ever felt before, right? I
Yeah.
always say that in yoga in the West, asana is the gateway.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you're like, oh shit, it's one of 8 limbs, right? It's
Right.
one
Right.
eighth here, people, one
Yeah.
eighth, right?
Yes.
But for us in our culture, that's our gateway because we're so disconnected. To your point, we're all analytical. Like I said, we're neck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least for me personally, and I know for a lot of people, actually, the body tends to be the doorway
Mm.
into the spiritual realm,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of what I talk about in the book, but in my practice and my social media, it's almost always body oriented.
Right.
It's going to be the practice of coming home to yourself in your
Yeah.
body, paying attention, mindfulness
Mm.
techniques, what's going on, questioning it like, "Oh, I feel tightness in my stomach when this
Mhm.
person does this." Let's
Mhm.
sit with that. I feel heat in my face when this person doesn't say what I want them to say. Let's
Mhm.
sit with that, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, when I work with people, it's always going to be the connection with
Yeah.
what is happening in the body because that is where intuition lives,
Yes.
right? And we need to be in our body. We need to be embodied in order
Yeah.
to actually connect to spirit as well, because spirit, source, God, whatever you want to say, is
Right.
not actually out there
Mhm.
like we've been
Mhm.
led to believe,
Yeah.
right? Again, in our Western culture, it's something, someone, some being outside of self that is
Yeah.
looking at you and saying, you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's in here,
Yeah.
but we're disconnected from in here. And so we
Totally.
have to start there.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just taught yoga before coming to the virtual Flirt Coach
Perfect.
studios to record this episode.
Perfect.
And I tend to conclude all of my classes, right? Coming into Sukhasana, easy pose,
Hmm.
inhale, palms up, exhale, hands down through heart center, chin to chest, blink the eyes closed. Thank yourself for showing up for your practice
Hmm.
today, honoring the light and teacher within you, knowing that you are your own best guide. You know
That's right.
yourself better than anybody. You know what you want and need. You know what you desire. You know how you love and want to connect. But when we're disconnected from ourselves, then all of a sudden that's where we get into unhealthy attachments, when
Hmm.
we chase, when we're going for those relationships that take more than they'll ever give back to us.
Mm.
It's looking outside of myself was such a huge revelation and a huge part of my own healing when I
Hmm.
realized I don't have to do all of this alone. And in fact, I can't. There
Mm-mm.
has to be something bigger than me.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to have this religious connotation where I feel like a lot of our minds go, where we hear, oh, we're talking about God. Not necessarily. Could
Mm-mm.
be,
Hmm.
but
Yeah. I mean,
something
I could
outside of
be
ourselves. Yeah.
sitting outside, and when I smell when the
Yeah.
jasmine's in full bloom,
Yeah.
it really is a spiritual experience. And I'm
Totally.
not saying that flippantly. Like I mean that, right? I
Yeah.
I have trained myself over years of
Mm,
doing this work
yeah.
to not miss that. I notice it
Mm,
every time,
wow.
right? I mean, it's nature. It doesn't have to be, to your point, like capital God, right?
Right.
I mean, before we started recording, I said that I lost my house in the fires here in
Mm,
California. And
yeah.
where we were in Altadena, we were up in the hills. And so
Hmm.
we have these bright green parrots that are native to
Wow.
very specific little area in Southern California, this eastern part of Southern California,
Uh-huh.
of LA. And when we moved just 10 minutes down the hill, I haven't seen the parrots a lot since the fires. I think a lot of them
Mm,
obviously kind of got out, but where
hmm.
we are just 10 minutes down, they don't really
Hmm.
live here. And I will tell you what, when I hear them, every once in a while, I'll hear a couple of them flying over.
Wow.
I stop every time. I feel it in my body. I well
Wow.
up with tears. Like
Yeah.
that's the connection right there,
Yeah.
right? It's the like, get out of this, get out
Yeah.
of the head,
Yeah.
connect to something bigger than yourself. And in that
Mm,
moment, it's the parrots for me.
yeah. Yeah. How I want to ask you how a little bit about that
Yeah.
journey from the head to the heart,
Mm.
about just being able to be with those really connected, expansive experiences. Cause I feel like I hear this all the time. And this was my experience for forever,
Mhm.
was I was missing life, right?
Yes. Ooh.
I wasn't able to see the parrots. I wasn't able to
Mhm.
even embody those experiences because I was so focused on do,
Mhm.
go, produce, earn,
Yeah.
work, be busy, full calendar, just keep myself distracted. So I ultimately didn't have to even be with myself.
And that's all on purpose.
It's part of the plan, isn't it?
It's
Not our
all
plan,
part of
but
the script
yeah.
of keeping you a cog in the wheel of capitalism, right?
Yeah,
And that's
I
on
agree.
purpose. And I say that I say that that is a hill I am willing to die on. Like, people
Yeah.
need to wake up and realize that you are meant to be in fight or flight. You are meant to
Mm.
be obsessed with the list that you just listed. That
Mhm.
is the checklist that you are supposed to be thinking
Mhm.
about constantly.
Mhm.
The powers that be do not want us connected
Mhm.
to our bodies, to ourselves, to our higher purpose, to something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
We're a lot harder to control and manipulate when we're
Yeah.
actually connected to ourselves and we're
Very
going,
true.
what do I want?
Mhm.
What do I need? What does
Mhm.
make me happy? Right?
Yeah.
Do I actually want this thing, or am I buying this thing because I've been made to believe it'll make me happy?
Mhm.
Right? But I know deep down it doesn't, but
Mhm.
I don't have that connection to actually question.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so a lot of this work, and I'll give this credit to Jung. A lot of people don't realize that depth psychology, the collective and the individual cannot be separated.
Mm.
Depth
Okay.
psychology really focuses on the collective.
Okay.
And through the individual liberation, you inherently lead to collective liberation.
Mm.
In doing this work, in waking up,
Yeah.
we start to take power back. We start to shift paradigms, not
Mhm.
just in family structures, but in
Mhm.
society,
Mhm.
right? And again, powers that be, they don't want that. So
Mhm.
there is inherently like a bit of kind of social justice arm, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
in doing this kind of work,
Definitely.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that experience too. I mean, we hear about waking up, and for me,
Mhm.
what that was like, part of what that was like, because I had a whole 9 to 5
Mhm.
before
Same.
this. I was a city planner, loved the work,
Yep.
geography, planning cities, land use, transportation. I grew up playing Sim City. So it's
Mm.
always an interest, has always been an interest, will always be an interest. But how, like, there's no such thing as a real 9 to 5. It's maybe an 8 to 6 with your
Yeah.
commute, and then you're
Oof.
living your life on these fringes. When are you going to cook dinner? When are you going to hang out with friends? Do you have a family? When are you going to take care of your kids? When are you going to run errands? How are you going to take care of your house? Like,
Mm.
you're all of a sudden, the days, the weeks, the months, the years pass by, and what have we become perhaps more disconnected from our true selves.
Yeah.
And what that looked like for me, the process of awakening to my true self, was just realizing that I actually don't need a lot.
That's right.
I feel like I have less than I've ever had in my life, and somehow I feel more free than I ever
Yes.
have.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have a traditional structure. I still very much, I got to work a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
Living is expensive, and I'm a single person, so we got to do what we got to do. But in exploring what it means to be me, let's talk about flirting.
Mm.
Let's talk about dating. Let's talk about relationships and connection. Let's start a podcast. Let's make videos.
Mm.
Yes, let's get on social media. Let's do all of that. And it has
Creative outlet.
been, gosh, I'm learning new things about myself every single day, but I feel like I'm living my life more so in accordance with what feels good and right and true and free, rather than what I
Mhm.
feel like I should do, what I've been told to do, what I feel like I have to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Well,
a
and
whole
it's the
process.
relationship aspect, like what you said about just discovering, through the conversations around relationships. I would
Hmm.
say you realize that you can live with less stuff.
Hmm.
You also realize that you're carrying a lot of emotional stuff too
Oh, yeah.
that you
Yeah.
don't need to carry, right? I mean, most of us, I would say women in
Yeah.
our culture in particular, but I would say all of us are made to believe that we are nothing if we are not partnered,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
are nothing if we don't have the family and the kids and the this and the that, right? You don't follow the blueprint that's been laid out for you.
Mhm.
And again, means to control. There's a reason for that,
Mhm.
right? We all get into these relationships not knowing ourselves.
Right.
And we get into these relationships because we've been chosen, right? Especially
Mhm.
as a woman. Oh, they
Yes.
chose
Yes.
me,
Yes.
and so that means everything. And I need to maintain that at all costs.
Right.
And we learn this in childhood. I mean, this is not something we just like suddenly develop at 20 years old.
Okay.
And so this process again, like full circle back to this idea of codependency
Yeah.
recovery, it's what you said about the stuff. It's
Mhm.
the same thing about the relational stuff too. We have to
Relational
start
stuff.
going inward and kind of trimming the
Mm.
low hanging fruit around
Yeah.
like, am I in this relationship with this person? And that doesn't necessarily mean romantic. I mean, that could mean all of our relationships, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Am I in this relationship with this person because they make me feel some sort of way. I feel less alone. I'm a bit of a relationship collector, and somehow it
Mhm,
means something about me if I've
mhm.
maintained all of these relationships, even if they're not
Yes.
serving me anymore. Right?
Yes.
We start to question this stuff, and it doesn't make us a bad person, doesn't make us a bad friend to start to
Right.
go, I don't, this doesn't really serve. I think it would be better for both of us if we kind of just like allowed this to fall away.
Yeah.
But that happens naturally once you start doing more of this kind of inner work, right?
Definitely. And let's get into a little bit, maybe the origins of codependency. You mentioned
Mm,
childhood just a moment ago. How might we learn that codependency is our maybe natural relationship style, or how do
mm.
we become inclined to be codependent in our relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like we ask fish if they're swimming in water, right? I look at that like codependency is the air we breathe.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
all of our media, it's all of the relationships we see, it's in
Hmm.
our familial dynamics, it's in our societal dynamics. I mean, it is so interwoven
Yeah.
that you are looked at as crazy when you start to actually break these patterns. You're looked at as selfish.
Yeah.
You're looked at I mean, I get all the time like that I'm pushing hyper individualism.
Uh
And I
huh.
would say, well, actually, I think it's the opposite. What I'm doing is I'm pushing against group think.
Hmm.
I'm pushing against I need to be in relationship with as
Hmm.
many people as possible to feel okay.
Hmm.
And what I'm saying is interdependence is
Hmm.
more I'm a sovereign self, you're a sovereign self. We come
Hmm.
together in right relationship, but
Hmm.
I don't need you to be anything other than who you are.
Right.
And you don't need me to be anything other than who I am.
Right.
And that's how we relate to one another from a
Hmm.
healthy sense of self. So
Hmm.
we do need people. We're collective beings. I mean, we know
Yes.
this. We're social
Yes.
creatures,
Yes.
but we've gotten ourselves into a situation where we are relating out of fear,
Yeah.
right? And not enoughness
Okay.
versus relating from a solid sense of self. Like
Okay.
you actually add to my life. Like I always say, it's like, especially in dating, I'll tell
Yeah.
people they should be the cherry on the sundae.
Yes.
They should not be the sundae. You
Right.
are the sundae. And sundaes are fucking delicious without a
Yes.
cherry, right?
Yes. We are finding all the ways to talk about ice cream today, aren't we, Vanessa?
I brought it all back for you, Benjamin, just for you.
Full circle. God, I know what I'm doing after this. Having some ice cream. I got cookie dough in the freezer right now, some whipped cream on
Do you have a
top.
cherry? Do you have a cherry?
You know what? I got some strawberries.
Okay, that'll do.
I'll do a strawberry on top for this one.
That'll do.
But I love this so much because I don't think you're pushing this narrative of hyper individualism. What I feel like I hear is that yes, we're like connection is my mission. It's my bread and butter. If I had to distill everything about the flirt coach into one word, it would be connection. We
Mm,
thrive on connection. I would say connection is one of the number one things that is required for well-being, for health.
right.
And this isn't just something I think personally. This is a fact. There's research, there's plenty of science, books, tons of information out there about how our social communities, networks, how interconnected we are
Mhm.
really doesn't only play into our physical health, but our social health as well. Like our connections are our safety net in many
That's right.
ways, that where we can go to for help when we have a question, when we need just to have a conversation with someone. And I think we've seen across the board, across the world, our social connections and our communities break down. And
Mhm.
so when the slightest thing happens, maybe you have a flat tire or something, what do you do? Do you have anyone you can call? Do you feel like you even could? Would you be okay asking for help?
Mm,
Or do you just like, I guess I got to figure it out?
mhm. Right, and
Yeah.
yet that's the person that probably has 30 people that they text on the
Yeah.
regular, but are they somebody exactly that you can call on, right, when something happens?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to read one more excerpt from your
Mm,
book here. I think really ties into this part of the conversation. You say codependency rooted in the fear of discomfort shapes how we form attachments, express our needs, and navigate conflict. It creates a dynamic where we seek to control others rather than embrace the natural ebb and flow of relationships.
that's right, that's right,
Yeah.
and, I think, again, going back to this idea of it, being rooted in the society, but also our family, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
This is how we were raised. It's how our parents were raised. Again, we're
Hmm.
not we're not shaming or blaming our parents for being who they are. They're swimming in the same soup we are.
Yes. Yes.
But most of us learned that we would be loved or lovable when we
Mhm.
were acting a certain way,
Mhm.
when we were performing, when we were
Mhm.
being good, when we
Mhm.
were doing what we were told,
Mhm.
right? And so we learn really early on how to conform and
Mhm.
fit ourselves into certain boxes in order
Yeah.
to be loved, to
Yeah.
be lovable. And that stays with us, right? Because what do we learn then as children? That me being my biggest self, my expansive self, my
Mhm.
silly self, my creative
Mhm.
self, whatever those things are that you had to put into the shadow when you were young,
Mhm.
I can't be those things and still be loved.
Right.
Right. And
Wow.
so it's not intentional necessarily, but even our parents, and I'm so hyper aware of this with my kid. And look,
Mhm.
I do it sometimes too, right?
Mhm.
We tell them, I love you if you're like this, but I
Yeah.
don't love you if you're like this. And again, it's not intentional, right? But I mean, whether it's cold shouldering, whether it's through
Uh,
shaming, whether it's through, right? It's like we take our love away if you're
yeah.
not behaving a certain way. And
Mm.
that is a really early kind of jump off point for a
Mm.
lot of these codependent tendencies later in life.
Yeah. Mm. I want to get your perspective now on how we are maybe socialized as
Mhm.
kids. I think there's to speak in binaries here, to be a good girl versus a good boy, very different. And
Yes.
so maybe how we're socialized as kids, how we're raised, how does that tie into how we maybe date as an adult?
It's a big conversation,
Yeah,
my
I
friend.
know.
I'm like, can I answer that in one sentence?
Yes.
I mean, look, again, we're talking binaries here,
Mhm.
and I would say even to like heteronormatively speaking, right? You've
Mhm.
got women who've got this kind of good girl narrative, and
Totally.
then
Yeah.
and how what it looks like to be loved as a woman,
Mhm.
right? And that follows us into adulthood. And actually, this isn't even heteronormatively because men have the same, and that follows them into their relationships regardless of
Yeah.
what kind of relationship we're talking about.
Yeah.
But what I see, especially at least in my heterosexual couples, is that you've got this like overt control and covert control.
Okay.
So in some way or another, and again, this is a lot of this is unconscious, a lot of this is unspoken, but men are almost coached in our society to it's okay for them to have more overt control, right? It's their
Mm.
role. It's they are kind of coached into dominance. They're
Mhm.
coached into be the loudest one in the room, be the best negotiator, all these kind of this idea of what a man looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Brave and stoic and confident and all these things.
Yeah.
And then women are the opposite. We're not coached into having overt control, and
Mhm.
so in order to have any semblance of control we learn covert control.
Okay.
And it's
Wow.
wild how often I see this dynamic play out in relationships, right?
Yeah.
And it's the idea of control, period. I don't actually even care if we're talking overt or covert. The fact is that we are taught that relationships to kind of relate, there has to be some semblance of control, period.
Yeah.
Right. And I would
Mhm.
say that, I mean, look, that's kind of, we live in a supremacist kind of culture, right? A culture
Mhm.
of domination. And so, of
Mhm.
course, control is going to be the through line.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of our work around codependency recovery, regardless of gender, regardless what we're talking about, is looking at and understanding the way we use control
Wow.
in order to relate, in order to feel good, right? And
Yeah.
starting to kind of untangle that. And it's hard. It doesn't, again, I don't care who you are. It's hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, flirt coach Gay Libra here, right? I've been socialized in many ways too, where like I feel like I hear this from a lot of queer people is we we become, oh my gosh, overachievers, people pleasers to the max,
Mm,
because if I get the good grades, if I'm good at a sport or a
yeah,
creative hobby or something, if I have a special talent, a skill, like we tend to just take everything on, not only so we can feel better about ourselves, so we can seek love and approval
that's right.
externally outside of ourselves, because that's how we're really deriving our sense of worth
That's right.
growing up. A lot of it's subconscious, we can also distract from maybe our queerness or our gayness or the
Mm,
fact that we're different, quote unquote, different in some way. So I'm always fascinated by how it's not just the relationships we have with our caregivers, maybe our
mhm.
parents, but also how we're socialized in our familial units, but also in society, in our
That's right.
schools, in
Our
our,
teachers, our
yes,
coaches, I
all
mean,
of it,
everything. Yep.
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I felt a Libra connection, by the way. I'm a Libra. My Libra moon. I feel like those of us with those Libra energies, and we can pontificate and like, but what about this? And what about that? Have you thought about this angle? And what about that angle?
Yes. That's so true. I find it really is it's an asset though in this
Hmm.
work. Sometimes
Agree.
maybe get termed shapeshifters or we kind
Hmm.
of like, are indecisive, but really I mean, we're the only sign of the zodiac that's a fixed, we're not a living creature, so to speak, or
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
We're a scale. And
Yeah.
we can just see things from every angle, I feel like.
Oh man. I just had a client recently that was
Yeah.
on one of these trips and I stopped her mid sentence and I went, "Can I ask you a question? Do you have any Libra in your top 3?" And she
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
"I am a Libra." I was
Oh
like,
god.
"Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a conversation about like
Yeah.
the light and the shadow of this sign."
Right.
Yes, that's right. You heard it here first. As a therapist, I ask people what their sign is. I have no shame in my game.
I mean, there's something to it. We do every equinox and solstice here on Flirtations. We do an
Okay.
astrological check-in with Fernie. He'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, Vanessa, let us get into. I got a couple questions here about attachment theory.
Okay.
And so this question I thought was really interesting. This flirty says, "Does anxious attachment make you more likely to be codependent?"
Okay, that's a great question. So, what I have come to understand about attachment, right,
Hmm.
is that they are not fixed. So,
Okay.
first and foremost, I want people to stop saying, "I am an anxious attachment.
Yeah.
I am an avoidant attachment." No,
Yeah.
you're not. You're in a dynamic that makes you feel anxious, or
Okay.
you're in a dynamic that makes you feel overwhelmed and flooded. And so you're
Yeah.
acting avoidant, right? We can show up differently based on the relationships that we are in.
Okay.
There are many relationships I skew more avoidant for sure, but there
Hmm.
are relationships where I will act more on that kind of anxious checklist, if you will.
Okay.
So, first and foremost, I want people to hear me on that. I want us to stop putting ourselves in these boxes.
Hmm.
They're harmful. Number one. Number two, when I look at codependency and anxious attachment, if you look at again that like checklist of what somebody would consider more anxiously attached, it does tend to look very similarly to what I would say is like these codependent tendencies.
Mm.
On the flip side of that, if you look at somebody who's more hyper independent,
Hmm.
it tends to be a little bit more of that avoidant
Okay.
checklist.
Okay.
But they are two sides of the same coin.
Hmm.
And here's why I say that. Those patterns, those ways of relating, those ways that we act out in relationships are all still ways to control and manipulate relational, whether it's people, whether it's dynamics, in
Hmm.
order to soothe our anxiety.
Mm. Okay.
So it doesn't actually even matter. Like
Wow.
I tend to be a little bit more hyper independent slash avoidant. I'm
Uh-huh.
still codependent. It's still the same thing. They're just two sides of the same coin. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like they're
Yeah.
still serving the same purpose. And I think that's the important part of it
Okay.
because I know people are like, yeah, but I'm anxious. So I'm
Right.
codependent. And they're not. Yes, they are. It just
Yes.
shows up differently.
Yeah. This is so interesting. I mean, really this through line theme of control showing up again.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now, I mean, I spend a lot of time online doing research, scrolling through videos. I want to see what other coaches, what other people are
Hmm.
posting about in the relationship dating space. And I so often see, right, maybe they don't explicitly mention or say the word control, but a lot of the advice is geared not to really be to make those authentic connections, really to be
That's
true to
right.
yourself, but to engender to cause a specific reaction
Yes.
in somebody that you're dating. And I
Oh,
have such a problem with that.
I'm like, I'm rolling my eyes because it's so activating for me as well.
Yes.
Like, God, it's all I see as well out there. And again,
Yeah.
it's like, how about if we turn the mirror around on ourselves?
Yeah.
We get in right relationship with ourselves. We go
Yeah.
inward, we do this deeper work on ourselves,
Yeah.
and then we let others be
Hmm.
whoever they are
Hmm.
going to be.
Yeah.
Relate and show up however they're going to relate and show up.
Yeah.
And then we take the ownership and the responsibility to decide if we want to be in relationship with this person.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you there because I struggle with this a little bit because the thing is a lot of that advice in dating, it can work. Like
Great. But how
to
do
an
you
ex
feel long term?
exactly, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Like, if you have to control somebody to get them to be in a relationship with you, it might work, but what kind of relationship are you could you possibly have?
Okay, great. You've been chosen.
Yeah.
come back to me in
Yeah.
10 years
Yeah.
when you're exhausted and you're still having to do these things to keep this person engaged, or you're constantly managing
Yeah.
that horrible feeling inside you of not feeling enough, or
Yeah.
feeling like they pull away every time you don't act a certain way, and you're
Mhm.
essentially acting out your childhood trauma
Mm.
over and over and over again, because all you've done is
Mm.
chosen somebody
Yeah.
who just sticks their finger in that wound, by the way.
Yeah.
And we would say that that's amazing. You've
Mhm.
actually chosen somebody who has the ability to help you look at and heal your wounding,
Yeah.
right? If you can take your finger off it long enough to actually
Right.
realize that's what it is.
Right.
It's an
Oh my
opportunity.
gosh. Yes. I all right, we're gonna get into in just a moment as we start to yes, I wanted to conclude the conversation talking about ways to heal codependency, maybe
Mm,
to recover from codependency. But wanted to ask this question quickly first. This one came through about trauma bonding.
yeah.
And is there a connection maybe between codependency and trauma bonding? Are they similar or are they different?
I mean, I don't know if I could say similar or different in like maybe black and white terms. I
Okay.
think that the way that I talk about codependency, right, is that it's something that we all struggle with.
Okay.
The behaviors show up differently in us and in our relationships, but this idea of needing to kind of control and manipulate in order to feel better, right,
Mm,
is consistent.
okay.
Trauma bonding, I feel like, is one of those pop psychology terms that's
Mm.
kind of gotten made a little bit bigger than what it
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
right? Um, I think that anybody who like activates us or who we feel like we have this intense bond with, people are starting to use this idea of like, oh, it's a trauma bond, right?
Yeah.
And trauma bond really talks about it. First of all, it is a little bit victim abuser is really
Mm,
where it
mm,
started.
okay.
You become bonded with an abuser. You become bonded with kind of the victim in your dance because you start to create this bond that's based on trauma, right?
Okay.
Um, can it be used in other ways? I mean, sure, but I just think we have to be careful with
Be
pop
careful.
psychology,
Yeah.
how often we use these terms.
Yeah.
But sure, can it be connected to it? Of course. I mean, if I'm in an abusive dynamic with somebody, and I've essentially constructed my entire sense of self
Okay.
based on this relationship, based on who this person is, how they show up, how they act, do they treat me well?
Yeah.
Sure, we can start to talk about
Yeah.
that through the lens of trauma bonding, right?
Okay. All right. That's really helpful. And as now we get into codependency recovery, I wanted to
Mm,
ask this question about some of the differences
mhm,
between we've been talking about interdependence
mhm.
a little bit throughout this conversation. So having that be yeah, comparing that to codependence, what does maybe healthy interdependence look like in dating and relationships versus hyper individualism versus I don't need anyone kind of
Yeah.
mentality?
Yeah. I mean, look, I do think there's a little bit of pendulum swinging that happens when we get into this work.
Okay.
Um, for example, if I'm somebody who struggles with saying no and setting boundaries, and I start practicing setting boundaries and getting in touch with that,
Mhm.
strong sense of self, it might start to come out as walls. I've seen this happen all the time, right? All of a sudden it's like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
People are like putting up walls everywhere. And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, like bring it down a notch. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
But I do believe that our system, what happens is we find ourselves in an extreme. And it's almost like if I were standing in a room, I would need to like tangibly touch the walls to find where I am in space. That's kind of what happens with us in this work. So,
Okay.
regardless of what we're talking about, we'll just use boundaries here. If I'm somebody who doesn't know what it feels like in my body to set a boundary,
Mhm.
I'm going to kind of swing to the other side of the pendulum when I first start experimenting.
Okay.
Oh, ick, that actually doesn't feel good either. And then
Mhm.
eventually I can feel my way into what a more healthy middle ground feels like. I
Mm.
find that happens a lot, even in this codependency work.
Okay.
So, for me, I'll use one of my personal examples. I am somebody who doesn't speak up. I've been
Okay.
that person my whole life. I sweep things under the rug, right?
Mhm.
And it's instant. I feel some sort of way or I get some kind of upset and it instantly happens where it's not a big deal. I sweep it under the rug. So
Okay.
I've had to over years really parse that out, build in at least a tiny pause so I can at least acknowledge that I have felt hurt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I even get to the step of actually articulating it or bringing up, I have to actually even recognize it's there. But in the beginning of that, it would be like, well, fuck you. You did this thing and now I'm
Yeah.
out of here. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, not
Right.
to mention, not to mention I'm a Taurus, so there's that too. But immediate fuck off, right? We're
Uh-huh.
done. But again, that's that pendulum swing.
Uh-huh.
So I had to start to back it up and say, no, I can sit in conflict with somebody and it doesn't mean that the relationship's going to end, because that's what it meant
Wow.
for me.
Wow.
And so I guess I don't know if that's helpful to kind of understand how it's like necessary sometimes for us to
Mhm.
allow ourselves to push into another kind of extreme in order
Mhm.
to embody what middle ground, what really interdependence can feel like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. And we have more astrological similarities. I've got Taurus in my chart as well.
Oh.
That is my, what would it be? My sun?
Oh, is
No,
your sun in
rising.
is your
No,
rising
my,
in Taurus?
what's your, I always get this confused. Your birth sign is your rising.
Sun. Your sun.
My sun. Okay. Libra sun, Taurus rising.
Oh, all right. What's your other third? What's your moon?
Scorpio.
Oh, I love a Scorpio.
Yes,
Okay. You got a good one.
I'm loving that in my chart for me and all the
I do
flirties as
too.
well. But yeah, I this is really helpful because I got this comment, not so much a question, but a comment. This flirty says they're recovering from codependency and they just find themselves completely like, I am not interested in dating right now. And I see this
Fine.
sometimes with the pendulum, right?
Yep.
Like sometimes we just have to be in that split in that space of just being with ourselves,
Mhm.
so that we can feel our feelings, be with our thoughts and emotions, and not necessarily worry or have to consider someone else in that experience. Because, yeah, I've been in that phase too, where it's like,
Sure.
I just needed to be with myself.
Yeah, don't pathologize it. Let yourself be where
Yeah.
you're at. I mean, look, if you blink your eyes and like 5 years down the road, you're still like everybody can, get lost.
Right.
We'll have a different conversation. But
Yeah.
if this is new, great. Like, do you start to explore what are my needs? What are my wants? What are my
Totally.
desires? What are my likes? Because that's the thing about us at our core struggling with codependency is a lot of us don't actually know.
Mm,
We've been taught to pay attention so much and for so long to everything and everyone around us
yes.
that we don't actually know who we are at our core. And
Hmm.
so sometimes being completely alone and
Hmm.
really like holding firm to that might be a way to start to discover what that is.
Definitely. Mm. All right, let's do this question. Yeah, this one came through. This person said, "Is there a way to restore a codependent, or so they're already in a relationship
Mm,
that they feel is codependent? Is there a
mhm.
way to bring that back to more of a middle ground where there's a level of interdependence between the two people?"
I would say there's always a way, but the
Yeah.
number one question I would have is, are both people active participants in
Mm.
this recovery journey?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Number one, like they have to both be at the table,
Okay.
each person owning their 100%,
Mm-hmm.
willing to own their 100%, each person fully understanding that they are also only 50% of that dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
not 60, not 90,
Mm-hmm.
50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that as a base point, then the answer is an unequivocal no.
Okay. Okay.
One person cannot carry the load. It's got to be both parties. If both parties are
Definitely.
doing the work simultaneously and showing up together again 100%, then yeah, I've seen it happen.
Okay. This flirty is asking about that balance between like giving,
Mm.
being there for your person, your partner, versus like, can we go too far? Like, is there a
Oh yeah.
line perhaps between I'm in this relationship, I'm doing things for my partner and then going into codependency? Is there a line there?
Yes, and we cross it all the time.
Okay.
So, I always talk about this like there's a difference between caregiving and
uh,
caretaking.
okay.
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 Even in the language, when you hear the word taking
Mm-hmm.
versus giving, that will
Mm-hmm.
kind of clue you into what I mean by this.
Mm-hmm.
Caregiving is something that we do genuinely from our heart because we
Mm.
want to, we desire to. It's from the kindness of our heart, right? It is something we
Okay.
truly desire to do. Caretaking is actually more about us.
Okay.
So, what I would say to people when they are asking this question, which I get some form of this question a lot, is
Mm-hmm.
pay really close attention to how you feel when you're in the state of doing and giving.
Okay.
If there is even the slightest amount of expectation of return,
Mm.
expectation that if I do this thing, they will act this way, or they will
Mhm.
treat me this way, or they will do this thing for me, you are
Mhm.
not caregiving, you are caretaking. There is an
Caretaking.
expectation attached to that, right?
Yeah.
Or we could even say, if you're not like tangibly doing, I see this show up all the time in the way that we give unsolicited advice.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Unsolicited feedback.
Uh-huh.
Somebody comes to us, they're upset about something, we jump into fixer mode.
Yes.
We're not doing that for them. We think we are.
Yeah, I
We're
think I know.
not.
Yeah,
We're uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable. And so
yeah.
in order to make ourselves comfortable, we
Mhm.
want to fix it for them.
God, that was learning that. I still have to relearn that lesson from
I
time
know.
to
Me
time and
too.
catch myself, but
Me too.
that was one of the life lessons that it changed my life.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same. It really helped me like shut my mouth, bite my tongue, take a breath, like
Right.
and really start to practice that script that a lot of us have heard, which is like, do you want me to give you advice right now or do you want me to
Yeah.
just sit here and listen, right? And hold space
Yeah.
and allow that person to tell you what they need,
Right.
right? And then honor it. Like don't jump
That's
in.
that's the distinction. It's like I would think from time to time like, well, I don't want them to think I don't care
That's right.
or something along those lines, but it's what do they
What do they
need?
need?
Yeah, that's
Not what do you need?
oh, I know. Oh my gosh, Vanessa, where's that ice cream? I need it right now. I've got just two more questions for you. I wanted to ask this one, coming back a little bit full circle to embodiment,
Mm,
which we were chatting about in the beginning. Because doing this work, healing codependency, recovering from codependency, or really any type of healing inner work, it's going to stir up some uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, emotions. How can we be with those experiences, become more embodied, and then live our lives more authentically from the heart and not the head?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is all about tolerance building.
Ah, okay.
Right. And I think people want like, I mean, we all do want a quick fix.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
talk about the work of codependency recovery really in this idea of like micro moments. Right. So if we think about the sense of self, capital S, being
Mm-hmm.
like a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to lay the foundation brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just come together whoop all together, right? It's
Yeah.
got to go brick by brick. And so every time I say no, when everything in my body is saying just say yes because
Mm-hmm.
what if they're disappointed in me, what if they
Mm-hmm.
stop being friends with me, what if they
Mm-hmm.
pull their love away from me, and I say no anyway because that's my
Mm-hmm.
truth. In the moment that doesn't feel like a micro moment, you might feel like you're gonna die
Yeah.
actually, and that's like
Yeah.
not even really an exaggeration because our body really is programmed to be like, oh my god, they're gonna leave me,
Yes.
ipso
Mm-hmm.
facto I'm gonna die, right? This
Uh-huh.
is what our species believes.
Mm-hmm.
So in that moment, that all that rush of all of those chemicals of stress and hormone, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna die. I breathed through it.
Okay.
I gritted my teeth. I
Mm-hmm.
sat with myself. I let
Mm-hmm.
myself cry. I let myself
Mm-hmm.
sweat. I let myself be anxious. I let
Mm-hmm.
myself pace, whatever.
Yeah.
And I did the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's one brick
Okay.
on the foundation of that sense of self.
Mm.
And it takes a lot of bricks, which might feel a little overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say look at it as amazing. You did a brick. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be some grand sweeping, okay, now I'm cured. It's like, no,
Right.
it's tangible. It's in the moment. It's piece by piece. It's brick
Yep.
by brick, right? And also acknowledge that it's a brick. That's a huge part of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I spoke up, right? Somebody hurt my feelings, and instead of pretending it was fine,
Mm-hmm.
I called them up and I said, "Hey, the other day when we were having that conversation, and you said I was blah blah blah, that
Mm-hmm.
really hurt my feelings. I have to
Yeah.
tell you that stung.
Yeah.
That for me personally, that's a brick. That's a big
Yes.
one for me, right? And I get to
Definitely.
lay that brick on that foundation. So embodiment is important because it's sitting with yourself. It's building that tolerance for I feel so uncomfortable I'm going to die,
Yeah.
or I think I'm going to die, and I'm not going to do the thing that would be the immediate solution to that discomfort.
Mm,
I'm not going to reach for that thing. I'm going to choose to breathe
mm,
into that discomfort, remind myself that I'm not going to die. It's okay.
yeah.
Even if that person gets pissed off and they do actually leave, I'm still not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
then slowly but surely it becomes easier.
Yeah.
It's not so much of a heavy lift to say no or to speak up or to whatever the thing
Yes.
is.
Wow. That's amazing. Brick by brick, building your levels of tolerance
Hmm.
to handle those difficult moments with all of your relationships, not
That's
just
right.
in dating, romantic relationships, but relationships of all kinds. And then
Yep.
come to a yoga class.
That's right.
Yeah. Come
Continue the
on.
embodiment journey.
Well,
Asana's where
well,
it's at.
yes, we'll breathe, we'll sweat it out, we'll
Hmm. That's
get some
right.
movement in. This has been absolutely amazing. Vanessa Bennett, thank you just for making the time today. Final question. I want to hear a little bit more about your book.
Ooh, yes. So the book is called The Motherhood Myth. It is
Hmm.
kind of geared towards motherhood and parenthood, and especially that early kind of ego explosion, if you will, that
Mm,
happens when you cross that threshold into parenthood.
okay.
But it would be not complete. It would be incomplete if I did not connect it back to all of our codependency work and our codependency journey.
Mm,
So even though it's written through the eyes of kind of that motherhood journey, I would say anybody who has a mother
yes.
or is in relationship to a mother would benefit from reading the book. So
Yes.
I know moms will be the one to pick it up mostly, but I hope other people who support mothers, but also the expansion of us as a species and like
Uh
how
huh.
we got here and how we start to heal some of these really unhealthy relational dynamics,
Yes.
will pick it up when it comes out.
Fantastic. You've got a gay Libra on your reading list for
Yay!
sure. I've got a mama. My mama is one of the absolute biggest reasons why I'm here. I love her very much.
Aw,
So I will definitely be, yes, picking up that book.
thank you,
Yeah,
Benjamin.
big reason of why I'm here. Vanessa Bennett, thank you so much for being on Flirtations today. Where can the flirties find you, follow you, learn more about your work, and pick up the book, The Motherhood Myth?
Yeah, so everything's through my website,
Okay.
vanessabennett.com. I'm mostly on Instagram at Vanessa Bennett as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got the book, I've got a community, I've got a depth psychology coaching school, I've
Wow.
got a Substack, we wear all these hats. I've got all the
All the
things. I've got the
hats.
podcast, but it's all
Yes.
linked on my website, so you can find it there.
Fantastic. I will
Yeah.
definitely have those links in the show notes below for this episode, sending the flirties your way. Thank you so much for being on Flirtations today.
Thank you, Benjamin.